no, it's very rare. Like I take supplements and things like that, but then for sort of get hit with codeine straight off the bat was pretty intense. But did you have shoulder surgery? I seen you had a
I,
shoulder
I,
injury, which
I
I'm sure we'll
didn't
get
have to
into.
have surgery. I had micro tears and nearly
Ooh,
detached one of my ligaments.
wow.
Got flipped. My arm got flipped. This arm here got flipped up and back in quite rough water.
Yeah.
It was coming at me from all angles, and I actually heard it pop. It
Oh,
wasn't very pleasant. So
oh,
I'm
I can.
still on my recovery journey at the moment.
So how long is that recovery, especially for like tendons and ligaments and stuff?
Um, I'm going to be another 3 weeks before they'll scan again.
Hmm.
Um, and then then they're going to tell me whether I can start swimming again. But I've started doing little bits in the gym, just with the stretchy bands and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
The most
And
boring work ever.
yeah, yeah. But it was so weak. You don't
Mm.
realize all your strength just drops off completely.
Yeah, and
Um,
I suppose that's a little bit of a spoiler as to what we're gonna talk about on the podcast today. Is obviously
it's all right.
you've I mean yeah, it's good. It's a good segue for introducing it. What why I've got you on today. So I mean the challenge that you are in the midst of. I mean you've done the majority of it, haven't you? I mean when it was Susie who put me onto you. And obviously, I know of you briefly through work and sort of being there, but I had no idea what you was doing. And then when I looked into it, I was sort of in awe of what you're doing. I mean, it's a
Thank you.
mammoth challenge, and it's amazing. And it's Ocean 7 in it is what it's called. Do you want to explain to people what that is in a little more detail, and I won't butcher it?
Okay. So the Ocean Seven is a challenge that's supposed to be one of the hardest for marathon swimmers, and it includes seven of the supposed most dangerous channels to swim in the world. So you've got English Channel, North Channel, Islands of Scotland, Catalina Channel in America, Gibraltar Straits, Cook Straits, Kauai Channel, and last but not least, my nemesis, the Suguru Straits, which is in Japan.
Yeah, we'll get into the Suguru one because I know there's a little bit of unfinished business with you for that one there. But
Certainly is. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm just so sort of for me, like I'm a swimmer, like I can swim. I was a lifeguard, this, that, and the other. But the magnitude in which you're doing this in these swims, like first and foremost, how do you even prepare for one of these? Never mind, multiple.
I suppose it's a bit like for runners training for ultra marathons, because you don't know, in case of swimming, you don't know what you're going to get on the day. In an ultra marathon, you know you're going to do sort of 31, 32 miles, and you can
Mm,
train for that. But depending on tidal conditions and things, I swum up to 50 miles in one day because you get pushed out the way by currents and conditions in the water. So it's endurance, massively about endurance. And I've always said it's about 70% in your head and 30% actually your training because you just have to keep going, keep going, keep going on the day. Don't stop for anything, no matter what the conditions are. Um, so, for example, the one that I haven't completed, Siguru Straits, I actually injured my shoulder in the first hour and a half of the swim. And I carried on swimming for another 10 hours. Probably not my best maneuver, but I was just determined that I was going to get as far as I could,
yeah,
despite circumstances. So
that's
I have
that
got,
is incredible. Like
it's
10 hours of swimming is just it's something that I I can't even fathom, and I reckon there's a lot of people probably listening to this who have never swam in open water. And do you want to explain sort of the significant difference of what it is swimming in your
it,
local 25-meter pool than it is swimming in the sea?
it is. You, first of all, you've got no control over temperature for a start. I can sometimes start to swim in sort of 12, 13 degrees. It'll go up to 15 somewhere, and then it might drop down to 11. Um, and then you get the other end of the spectrum in Hawaii, that particular one where the water, it was like swimming through treacle because it was warm. So for me, 20 degrees is really, really warm when you're doing a distance swim. So you just felt awful the whole time, like not pleasant at all.
Yeah, like
Um,
swimming in bath water.
yeah, then you've got the currents that you hit. They're unpredictable. So the English Channel, as an example, is reasonably predictable on most days. You have to swim in like a big S shape to get to land. So the tide pushes you out one way, pushes you back another way, and then pushes you in again. Um, but there are others like Seguru Straits and Cook Straits in New Zealand where you get a different current running every hour to hour even. So on the last one I was doing the Seguru Straits, they were literally each time I came in for a feed every half an hour, they were saying the current's changed again. You're going to have to swim really fast to get over the next one. So there was no respite. So it's like almost swimming on a treadmill that's unpredictable. It pushes you faster and faster, and you think
Yeah,
you're going
yeah.
to fall off the back, basically. Um, and then you get the waves, which can smash and crash from all directions. Sometimes you get really reasonable conditions and it's quite flat, comparatively speaking, for the sea. But other times you get big rolling waves, so you can't see where the support boat is. You feel like you're isolated in the middle of nowhere. And then you get sea creatures.
Oh, this is the one
So,
that I wanted to ask.
yeah. So on a couple of my swings, I've been stung really, really badly. Um, so worst of which was swimming Hawaii, the Kauai Straits. I got stung by two men of war within the first 6 hours, one on each side. Obviously, swimming doesn't like my shoulders because I've pulled this one and I've had jelly stings. But I was literally hallucinating while I was in the water. I was
Wow.
convinced there was another boat that I needed to follow. But I was very fortunate that my pace didn't drop, so the adjudicator allowed me to carry on because he said she's swimming fine, just let her crack on. Um, that particular one took me 21 hours because I was out of it. Really wasn't. I just obviously I was still swimming, but the conditions. Everyone was being seasick, basically. Even the professional kayakers next to me, because it was quite uncomfortable waves, basically. So I had two big stings, which made me hallucinate. I was very multicultural in my hallucinations, though, because I saw a Chinese junk and the boats you get in Venice,
Yeah,
what they're
yeah.
called.
Oh,
Yeah,
like the gondola things.
the gondola. Thank you. Yeah, I saw a gondola as well. And at one point, I apparently asked the kayaker, which boat should I follow? And he was looking around like open water, like there's only me and the big
Yeah.
boat.
And nothing but blue
Uh,
in the horizon, and
nothing,
you're
yeah, nothing
going
but
about a
blue on the
gondola.
horizon. I'm going on about a gondola, yeah. But I
Wow.
kept swimming, so yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I sort of want to ask the question as well, just so people can obviously paint the picture, rather than the vast blue that surrounds you. You mentioned there that you have a team with you, and there's people obviously making sure that you're okay despite
Yeah.
hallucinations, obviously. But so what does a team look like when you do these swims?
So I've had some amazing friends and accompany on these swims who've been my support group because if you're thinking I'm up for 21 hours, they've probably been up for 4 hours preparing for that before I get on board the boat, making sure my feeds are ready, making sure that everything's in the right place for me so nothing gets in my head and I'm able to just get in and swim. They're
Mm,
standing at the side of the boat constantly watching to make sure I'm okay. And they're preparing feeds literally every half an hour and recording the swim for the adjudicators so that everybody knows what I've done and that I haven't cheated in any way. So amazing friends involved in that. But then you also have the pilots of the boat in each country. And these guys, without them, you cannot do it because they're quite dangerous waterways, but they know them inside out, back to front. They've often been fishermen or crewed in the area themselves. And they know how to work the best way through the currents for you. Without their knowledge, you wouldn't be anywhere near what they are,
yeah,
pace
and I,
wise.
and I imagine sort of even for me speaking to you, I've read bits into it and obviously looked into it preparing for the podcast. But so much logistical work goes into doing these swims, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
like I said, I imagine a lot of it is sort of you have to pass that on to other people. And is that reassuring when you're in the water? That because I can imagine it's very lonely. I can imagine when you're actually in the water and you're in there for 20 hours and you're just seeing the abyss of the blue. Like, is it nice to know that there's the human
it's
world isn't
very
too far away?
yeah, it's very helpful that I've got friends on board the boat because you know that your friends have got your back with things. Um, And it's nice when you go in for a feed, you get a smile. Somebody will say you're doing well, or your stroke count's great. Just keep going. Or this horrible current you're going through is going to come to an end in a minute. So you just keep going for another 20 minutes. We'll hopefully be out the other side of it. So yeah, it is. It's really for me. It's really important. I feed every half an hour. Some pro swimmers do every 15 minutes because you're burning off that many calories. But that 30 minutes is key for sort of mental well-being as you're going through the swim. For me in particular, because you get a smile off somebody, you get a bit of interaction.
Yeah, and I want to ask about your feeds. Just I want to know what they are a bit more in depth in a little second. But you mentioned there like pro swimmers do it, every 15 minutes. Was it a bit of trial and error when you did your first one, or did you have this all prepared in mind that you was going to do it
No,
every 30 minutes? Or
when I was training, when I initially started training, I just made things up to see what worked for me because each athlete, when you're doing endurance stuff, is slightly different. So obviously, I read what people had done previously, but I found that if I get my head down for an hour, I like that at the beginning because it feels like I've got a chunk of the swim done, and I
mm,
pop up for my first feed then, and then after every 30 minutes after that. That sometimes gets changed when you've got currents and things. So they'll run you for 45 minutes or pull you in at 20 because they know they won't be able to keep the boat and you stationary long enough for the food. So there's a video of me in New Zealand. They bring me in for a feed, but I'm being flung backwards as soon as I stop at sort of 5 meters a second almost. So you just see me go straight past the feed bottle
yeah,
and into the distance. We have to try again. But
someone's got
broadly
you on a lasso.
speaking, yeah, broadly speaking, I try and stick to that sort of setup. An hour at the beginning and then 30 minutes.
Mm. Wow. So what does a feed bottle consist of? For those who are interested, like myself, and obviously I'm quite food
Okay.
centric, so I'd like to know what that is every half an hour.
So I've settled now on something called Elevar, which unfortunately they've stopped making this year. So I'm going to have to find another one, which is really, really annoying. But for a long time, I've used a product called Elevar, which is, I'm not going to say this too loud because it's admitting my age, but it's for people who are over 35 because it's gentle on your stomach.
Yeah.
It's a slow release carb, basically.
Mm.
You need to get as much down as you possibly can and I mix that up. So I do it in threes. I have some sort of gel for one. I then have a hydration drink because even though you're in water, it's obviously salt water, so you still
Mm.
need to hydrate massively. And then the third one is the slow release carb. Um, when I get to halfway, I have a jelly bagel celebration.
Nice. I like that because
So yeah.
I'd love to know what's that first meal when you get out after the swim, because I can imagine that must taste so good.
So, um, this is not very athlete of me, I know this, but because I've been in salt water the whole time, often the inside of your mouth is really, really sore, and it
Mm.
feels like your tongue is three sizes too big for your mouth. You've lost the skin off the inside of your mouth.
Wow.
So swallowing is not always that easy. And the thing I almost always beg for afterwards is a McDonald's strawberry milkshake. Sorry,
I love
it's
that.
not
There's
it's
nothing
not
to
very
apologize
athletic.
for. I mean, when you've been swimming for 21 hours, I think you can justify any meal and any sort of
Yeah,
calorie intake. I don't think you do pretty well to counter the net of that from
yeah.
what you've just said, your
Well, if you
expenditure.
if you're thinking what the calories are that I burn, and sometimes because of conditions and things like in Hawaii, that's why it took me so long to finish because I'd been seasick and I'd been stung, which had affected me. I actually wasn't taking in any of the calories. So I was doing that on empty, which is why the
Wow.
last bit took me so long, because there was just no energy left in me. So you do burn a lot.
Oh, I'd love to see like an Apple Watch or a Garmin stat of the expenditure of
I
that because I
I, I tried to do that in New Zealand because I've got a fancy Apple Watch now that would have
mm,
told me, but the adjudicators make you take them off because it's
oh
seen
do
as
they?
a way of cheating. Um,
What?
Presumably because you could have some sort of beat in it to keep your
All
stroke at the
right.
same rate, or I don't know, but you have to. The only things you're allowed to wear on these swims are like a normal speedo costume, earplugs, goggles, cap, uh, or you can wear a nose clip, but yeah, that's it.
Wow. I would have never foreseen it being so not pedantic. I think that's probably the wrong word that I'm trying to look for. But do you know what I mean? Like I would never have assumed that wearing an Apple Watch would be deemed as giving you an
No,
unfair advantage for swimming 21 hours in the sea.
yeah, it is anything that's seen as an aid, you're not allowed.
Wow.
Obviously, because you're in places that, even in England, I had to wear lots of sun cream and Vaseline and Sudocrem and things. So the Vaseline is to stop chafing, because obviously you're doing 20
Yeah.
hours of the arm rubbing against your costume. Here
Yeah.
and here and here would get really raw. So
Mm,
it's not a sexy sport at all because you're
no. And the
covered
salt
in all
water.
sorts of, yeah, covered in all sorts of slime. Um,
Yeah, because isn't it duck fat? Wasn't that like one of the things that people used?
So, so people do that still. They use products with lanolin in, because supposedly it keeps you warmer. But I tried it, and it smells horrific. Um, and I just thought that's not for me. Um, so I'm also slightly allergic to lanolin. So I actually came up like bright red because of that. So I
That's not
just
what you want.
use No, I just use normal Vaseline, lots of it, in
Mm.
areas that might chafe. So around the edges of your costume, basically.
Mm. So obviously the Seguru Strait is your nemesis for now.
Yeah, for now.
But you've done all these other swims and that. What was the hardest one of the ones that you've completed?
Definitely Hawaii.
Mm,
Hawaii, I got on the second attempt. On the first attempt, I was being stung repeatedly by absolutely beautiful but tiny little jellyfish.
wow.
For those of you who know Peter Pan, Tinkerbell is like a lovely glowing light that floats around. They were like that, so in the water because you start off at night time. And
Yeah.
initially, I was thinking, "Oh, aren't they beautiful? Oh, it's beautiful." Every time I pull my arm through the water, every time I was pulling my arms through the water, I was getting 20, 30 stings each time. Little tiny ones. They weren't
Mm,
horrendous. They weren't. They were like almost like little nettle sting pings straight onto your skin. But after 6 hours of it, I got an over accumulation of the poison in my body basically and started to swell up and be ill.
like the compounding effect of just being stung
Y-
over and over
Yeah,
again.
yeah. So
And so,
unfortunately, I got pulled on that one.
wow. And so is the Seguru and Hawaii the only ones where you've ever had to redo, or have you had to redo
They are,
a few?
yes.
Yeah,
No. It's only Saguru and Hawaii. Saguru because I injured my shoulder in the first hour and a half, and Hawaii because of sea life that didn't really want to share the water with me.
yeah. How do you sort of like resilience and mindset? Are two of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you today, as well as this amazing achievement, as well as many other things. But you know, sort of leaping forward a little bit. Um, when you obviously failing's the wrong word, but obviously when you get stopped doing this, especially with Hawaii, considering you've been back and you've done that one and defeated it. What what is what's the build up to that second attempt like? Is there like a doubt or an anxiety around it because you've sort of not done it that first time and then you're sort of facing it again? Is Did it feel different when you do it a second time in comparison to the first ones?
It does, yes, because you have. I work really hard to stay positive about things.
Mm.
So I almost don't let it into my head. I'm just going and I'm doing another swim. Um, and if you get people who are a bit negative around me, or are you a bit worried about this one? I try and keep them at arm's length. So, my answer 99% of the time, if somebody asks me how the training's going, is going to be, "Oh, it's great. Well, it's really going well." Even if I've just had the most horrendous pool day or whatever it is, it but because maybe it's because I'm not very bright or something, but you almost convince yourself that
Mm.
that this is all good. And I always have the attitude that you never stop. So even on those days where training is absolutely awful. So we were talking at the beginning about me now having to do elastic band training in the gym, and I'm finding it really boring. But I'm not going to stop. I've got to keep going because I've got to get my shoulder better. You can't give up. It's that kind of and the reasons that I do it for Alder Children's Hospital, that massively motivates me as well. Um, so I flipped this one on its head by saying, "Oh well, I get two bites at the sponsorship because everybody will sponsor me again when I go back
Yeah,
next
yeah.
year." Um, I try and find little positives with things that will
Mm.
keep me going. And when you consider the things that people do in Alder Hey for children and families who are in horrendous circumstances, it's worth every moment of my time. It's what I've gone through is nothing compared with what some of the
Mm.
children and young people have been through that need the services in Alder Hey.
And I mean, it segues really nicely into, other topics in why you're doing this. Obviously, you said you've done it for all the hair. It's around, is it £40,000 you've raised so far, roughly
I,
around
I'm
that?
I'm actually at 70 now because I've restarted
Wow,
the page. So I've raised
wow,
70,000. And one of the things I'm most proud of is not my Channel Swim certificate or North Channel certificate. I'm on the wall in Alder Hey as being one of
wow.
their chief fundraisers. So I've got my names like next to Ollie Muir's and the Roonies and people like that. So I was like, "Ooh,"
Yeah, yeah.
when they took me to see it. Yeah.
That's such a massive amount of money, isn't it? And does that come with its own pressure?
It does, yes, because obviously um, everybody wants to sponsor you and everybody's incredibly generous and kind, but you can't keep going back to the same people over and over again. So
Mm.
I have to work really, really hard to generate an audience around the swims, which is not always that easy. But I have had people sponsor me from like random countries when I'm in the middle of a swim because they've caught on to the fact that I'm doing the Ocean Seven. And I think there's only about 32 people who've ever achieved it. And I'm hoping to be the first British woman. So people have been sort of watching out for me because they knew I was getting close. And I've had people sponsor me from India, America, a random person in Japan. Actually, while I was swimming the English Channel, the ferries you see coming back from France,
Mm.
I was going past one of those, and somebody who'd done a Channel Swim relay the week before had been on the boat that I was on the pilot with the pilot I was with, Fred. They saw the boat, they looked up who was swimming, and they sponsored me from a Channel ferry boat.
Wow.
So
Wow.
people are incredibly generous. I've had people. I was training in the Lake District, and we went for a walk afterwards. And my husband had made up all these hoodies with Alder Hey on and sponsor Karen kind of thing when I was doing the English Channel. Um, and we walked into a random cafe. Cafe owners came over to us and said, "Are you doing that for Alder Hey? Wow, that's amazing!" And started like shoving like £10 notes and stuff into my hands. I just feel so privileged because I could have been a complete randomer, um,
Mm.
and they were just so trusting, so generous. I've had people when I was training in Wales come up to me on the beach and say, "I know who you are. This is for you," and give me a tenner and
Wow.
things. And it's a lot of money for people, but you've got to keep going because of the end point of it is, what you're achieving with it.
Yeah. And like, again, obviously all the hair, what a, what it does is amazing, isn't it? And I think obviously what you're doing as well is also amazing. So it sort of fits hand in hand that something amazing is being done to, provide money for something that is amazing and provides a service, for so many people in so many ways. And when you was talking before about, your motivation for doing it, and people ask you've got this positive mentality. You have a catchphrase as well, don't you? That you like to use. So
A can and a whale watch me.
yeah, I love that. And when I seen that and I was looking into it, how did that come about? Was that through these not doubters, but this negativity that you said you faced, and being
It was
around?
because I was a random 40-odd-year-old. Um, I'd been ill with mental health things because I'd lost my husband and my children.
Mm,
Um, diagnosed with PTSD, and I still maintain the hardest journey I ever made was getting up one day and getting myself to Park Pool in Ormskirk to swim, because somebody said to me, "What did you used to enjoy doing before all this happened?" And I kind of thought back to when I was a kid and thought, "Oh, I used to really like swimming. But I got myself there, got in there, met somebody that I'd swum with as a child, and she took me for a coffee, then took me to Park Run, and then things sort of spiraled from that kind of positivity from someone. So I swam a mile in a wetsuit in Lake Windermere. Great North Swim was my first swim. And I raised about 500-600 quid for Alder. And my cousin made a joke when I got out the water and said, "Well, I'll be swimming the channel next." And I kind of went, "Why not?" Um, and when I was a kid, a program called Blue Peter used to get a Blue Peter badge. And it was around the time that people really started swimming the channel. And they had a couple of channel swimmers on who got Blue Peter badges. And I was thinking, "Ooh, I could do that." I could
the
get a Blue
motivation.
Peter badge. Yeah. But then because I was a random, like, nobody, I had loads of people who were like, "Oh, yeah, she's going to swim the channel." Ugh. Um, which made me more and more determined to do it. Or I even had somebody say to me, "Oh, well, don't worry if you don't achieve it. You've done lots of training and that's been good for you." And I was like, "Well, I don't like the sound of that." But when I went down to swim in Dover with people who train on the beach every week, there's quite a famous group of people who train there. Um, I I saw on one of their t-shirts, the motto, "A can and a will watch me." Um, so I thought, right, I'm going to have that on my cat because I know it's a little bit bolshy and childish, but it sums it up. I'm not going to give up. I am going to keep going. And don't doubt me. Thank you very
Mm,
much. Because if I don't get it the first time, I'll go back and get it the second time.
I love that. I do. I think that's, it's so inspiring, and I think where you said that people just would probably just perceive you as this woman, that not this, that, or the other. The reason that I love this story, and that it sort of alarm bells went off as soon as I heard about it, is that you are an everyday person, aren't you? And yet, you know, if you scratch beneath the surface and just have a conversation like we're doing, you find out that you're doing this. You know, it's not just a massive challenge. It's like it's a legacy. People you'll be in like history books, and you'll be the first British woman to do it. And you know,
Yeah,
I think for me, the reason that I think it's so sort of like beautiful and amazing is that, you know, you talked there very briefly about your journey, and your mental health, and you've been very open about that, and you've never sort of shied away from it, have you? And
no,
I think anyone that can listen to this and sort of follow your journey, it can prove that any situation you can make positive, and you can do something amazing. And it just completely it fires me up. I think it's so good what you're doing, and just to hear about it more in depth, it just blows my mind even more. Like the
thank
the,
you.
the little things that you talk about it. So yeah, I mean, I love that motto, and I think you can be as bullshit as you want, because some people talk the talk, but you are walking the walk. And yeah, I don't think the magnitude in which you actually do it almost comes across sometimes. I think people just think, oh, it's a swim in the sea. But then,
Yeah,
like you say, you swim for 21 hours, you swim hallucinating. Like
yeah,
there's so much more
yeah.
to it, isn't there, than just it's a swim.
So some incredible experiences though. We talked a little bit about jellyfish and things. I've had a few sobering moments when you rock up to the swims and they put shark sonar on you and on the boat to because you're swimming in shark infested waters. So I actually got sent a video by somebody in America today who I made friends with while I was doing the Catalina channel. Um, One of the swimmers who went in to do the swim last week was pulled because they got bitten twice by a shark. And you just think, wow, and when I was in, a week after I was there was a sighting of great white in the bay next to the one where I landed. But I had the most amazing experience with
Mm,
Catalina. There was a super pod of dolphins came through, and it actually made international news because there were so many of them. And they crossed my swim path 3 times. It was just phenomenal. They were swimming under me, jumping over the kayaker, swimming next to the boat. It was just, they were properly being nosy to see what I was doing, coming up underneath me and giving me a good look. What a phenomenal experience. And I just stopped in the water like, oh, wow. And it
mm,
happened 3 times. And each time the pilot off the boat shouted, you need to crack on, crack on. No,
yeah.
keep going. And at the end, there's a picture of me that people have used. And I'm looking very wrinkly because I've come out of the sea, having been in for 16 hours or whatever it was. Somebody's put a towel around me, somebody's given me a hug. But all I remember is the voice in the background. It could have been 50 minutes faster if you hadn't stopped for the dolphins. And I was like,
Get
when else are you going to see get to swim with wild dolphins like that?
I know. Wow, that is such a like, I feel like it's such like a bucket list thing, where you're doing it like
Amazing.
7 times and you're seeing all these amazing things. And I think
Yeah.
it's sort of the reward, isn't it? That you're putting yourself in these situations, and maybe it's the universe giving it you back by, maybe not the hallucinating and the jellyfish things, but then giving you some nice things like the dolphins
So,
and stuff.
so the good thing about going back to Japan is I did not have a single stingy jellyfish there. So I might have some horrible currents and conditions to beat, but I don't have to beat the jellyfish because the jellyfish don't hang around there because it's too rough, basically. Too many currents. They get blown through.
Yeah, it's not good if the jellyfish don't want to be there.
No, no. I got,
They're
they've got
no, go on, sorry.
I was going to say I got little tiny wormy ones that when you were putting your hand forward in the water, they'd almost link round your fingers, but they didn't sting, so they just
Oh,
came off as you swam. But yeah,
you are justifying my wife's biggest phobia here. She hates the sea and she hates jellyfish. She'll listen this and she will wince for a good 30 minutes. Just even thinking that you've described jellyfish I didn't even know existed. So I think
but also you just get incredible clear blue waters. You can
mm,
see for miles. I did the ice mile in Norway, um, which was a phenomenal experience. So swam a mile in the Arctic Circle, basically. Um, so it was 3 degrees or less. It has to be 5 degrees or less, and it was 3 degrees on the day. But when you actually got into the water, it's so cold and crisp and clear. You could see like 30 meters down, and you were looking
wow.
at starfish on the bottom. It was just, I know, it's a blizzard in your face when you breathe. That wasn't very pleasant. It was, yeah,
The ice strait is something that obviously I'd seen when I'd looked into it, and that is that is insane. 3 degrees is cold. Like I like ice baths and things like that, and I sit in it for 2 minutes and think, what a job well done today, Jack. You've sat in some cold water, but you swam a mile in that.
yeah,
And I think people don't
yeah.
understand that even the sea swims that you're doing, like a like Edgehill swimming pool, for example, I think that's like 29 degrees. And you saying like the hottest one you did was what, 20? So it's sort
About
of like
20, yeah.
so the temperature in which you swim in generally is cold, isn't it? And then you
A
know,
lot of swimmers, yeah, a lot of swimmers say the hardest one to do is North Channel, which is Ireland to Scotland. You start in a place called Donaghadee, and you swim across to Stranraer. And there are a lot of swimmers who are really, really good who've not achieved it a couple of times because the temperature has got to them. I don't use the C word or the F word, and I don't mean rude words there. The C word, which just doesn't exist in my vocabulary. People say, "Is
Yeah.
that?" And I go,
Yeah.
"No." It's
Yeah. Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
You can feel the
Yeah.
heat coming up through the sand.
It's nice and warm. It's nice and warm.
Yeah, nice and warm. Nice and warm.
So when you like, obviously, when you've not got wild dolphins swimming under you and around you and, doing jumps over you and things like that, what is the concentration point when you're in there and you're just battling away?
So at least the first hour of the swim, and sections through it, I'm thinking about where my stroke is. Is my hand in the right place? Am I pulling equally on both sides? Am I keeping my head low enough in the waves when I breathe? Am I getting the most I can out each stroke? Because obviously, if I go 20 centimeters more on each stroke, that's less strokes overall that I have to do. So I try really hard to think about positioning, leg kick, timing, all of those kind of things. That then goes out of my head at certain points, and I'll find that I've almost switched off and gone into like a sort of trance-like state. So I'll
Mm,
see the sign come down off the side of the boat to say 5 minutes to feed, and I'll think, oh, is it 30 minutes? Because I've literally been in a sort of zombified state,
yeah.
just keeping going. And
Almost like
then you
that
get,
runner's high.
yeah, 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 I suppose it probably is, yeah. But it's just almost a meditative state to me. Um, I get an incredible feeling of peace from being in open water. Not necessarily on these swims, because obviously I'm pushing myself physically, but it's something that calms my mind. Um, so I will often be found floating about somewhere, um, just enjoying the sky or the stars or something from the sea. Because so humour value, I went over to Marbella recently for a friend's 50th birthday, and we'd been to this fabulous beach party, and we're walking back shoes in hand down the beach towards the apartment we're staying in, and I gets in the water. And they all had to sit on a sunbed. They leave sunbeds on the sand. Everyone had to
Yeah.
sit on sunbeds while I had a bit of a float because I wouldn't come in.
You'd been missing it
So
so much being in open water.
yeah,
It's like, I've got an opportunity here, I've got to take it.
yeah, yeah. It makes me relax.
Mm.
Um,
I suppose that's sort of where you have to be in there because obviously speaking with no experience whatsoever, I imagine you do have to try and find that happy medium of pushing yourself, but not overly pushing yourself and not sort of getting carried away and
yeah.
running the tank out in the first 2-3 hours.
No, it's all about staying steady at a particular pace. So you find your pace and you stay with it. And no matter you sometimes have to go harder to get across a current, things like that, but you need to drop back into your steady pace as soon as you possibly can. So the pilots will say to you, you need to swim hard for 40 minutes now because you won't get across this current otherwise. And you've got
Mm.
to just get your head down, sprint all out, give it everything you've got. But then instead of, I almost see it as a recovery. You drop back into your recovery pace once you've got over it. Rather than just stop and
Yeah, feel a bit like just give up, not give up, but sort of like just course. There's still that balance of
yeah,
ticking
you've
over
got to keep
nicely, but
going.
not. Yeah, and you mentioned and it sort of triggered a question in my mind: is that how transferable is the approach that you have in your open water swimming and your challenges that you do to everyday life?
Massively. I've been very privileged in my career to. At the moment, I'm head of IT for Alzheimer's Society, the charity, um, and a massive amount of transferable skills. Um, People laugh at me because I actually on your Teams thing at the bottom, I've got my motto thing there. I can and I will watch me because I apply
Mm,
that to work as well. Um, and you get projects to do, and you look at it and you think that's huge. It's insurmountable. How are we going to do this? You break it down into bits. You do this bit, then you do that bit, and I'm only going to look at that bit. I'm not going to think about that bit yet.
mm,
Um, Um, the way you behave with people, I think, is massively influenced as well. Because I've had, obviously, with my mental health and just generally feeling ill on particular swims, there have been hurdles to overcome. And you never know what's going on in somebody else's head. They might be having one of those hurdles. So there's a great deal of truth. There's an old saying, isn't there? You don't know what anyone's going through, so just be kind.
Yeah.
And I try to live my life by that. Obviously, I'm not saintly. That does slip occasionally.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can attest to being
Partic-
saintly.
particularly in
No.
traffic jams.
Yeah. Cars bring out the worst in us all, don't they? But
Yeah,
that's amazing. And another thing that I wanted to touch on is that you're doing these mega challenges, and there's so much planning. Like you said, you was talking about work, but like we was talking about it being transferable. So I imagine there's so much sort of planning, logistics, admin that go into doing one of these challenges or one of these swims.
yeah.
But like you said, alongside your day job, how how do you how do you make time? How do you separate them things? How do you make sure that you're not sort of being all consumed by one and not maybe giving the other the attention it deserves?
It's really hard sometimes. And there are occasions where I see work um, as being a means to an end,
Mm.
because I've got to earn money to be able to fund my next swim. Um, and you get into that sort of negative mindset a little bit. Um, but actually, particularly now, I work for a charity, which I really enjoy because I feel like the end of what you do is something amazing. Because we're working towards cure for certain varieties of Alzheimer's by
Mm.
2030, and ending the devastation it causes families. That when you get up every morning to that as a thing in your head, it's perhaps very different to some other jobs. So I am quite privileged from that perspective.
When it
Um,
becomes a
but
passion almost.
yeah. But balancing things is particularly hard in winter months because in the summer it's okay getting up really early and going out and do the run that I need to do or get into the pool because it's sunny, you hear the birds singing, it's quite nice driving places. Um, but in the winter, when it's pitch black, freezing cold, and you're coming out of Edge Hill, being thrown out by the staff at like 9 o'clock or whatever it is, because you've been training for the last 3 hours, it's less pleasurable.
Yeah, I can. I'll have a word with them next time. Don't worry.
Oh no, they're brilliant. I'm only
Yeah,
joking.
I know, I
It's
know, I know.
no, no, they are
But
all really supportive.
yeah, I can just sort of picture the the carnage of the winter months because, like I said, there's probably so much training that goes into it. And you mentioned there about running. Is it? I'm saying this from well, a bit like a philistine in the area of not really having much experience, but I imagine it's not just swimming that you have to do to be able to do something like
No.
this.
So the reality is, I'm in the gym 4 times a week, doing strength training, 2 arms, 2 leg sessions. I run as well, um, not very well. That's not my forte. I'm really bad at it. It sounds like 1,000 hippos coming down the road. But from a cross training point of view, it's another thing that's cardio, which is quite
Mm,
helpful. And then obviously I'm in the pool probably 4 or 5 times a week. And as the water gets warmer as you come into springtime, I'll extend the open water swims at the weekend. So I might do a 6 hour, 7 hour swim on one day of the weekend and a 3 hour swim on the next day. So uh, you have to plan everything ruthlessly almost
yeah.
to fit everything in.
Well, yeah, if
Um,
you want to be out for 6 hours, I mean, most people don't, most people would train and taper a training program just to do that after, 10 weeks, and you're doing it as a part of your regular training.
yeah.
It's
Mm.
so time consuming, and I imagine like the the calorie consumption that has to go into that and the carb loading. And do you ever just get sick of like putting the food away
Yeah,
sometimes?
sometimes, yeah, it's just you just almost feel like I can't get it
Yeah.
down anymore. But
Yeah.
I've got like little routines that sort of keep me going with that. So I know
Mm,
tuna pasta is something that I always eat the night before
yeah.
because I know my stomach can tolerate it. It's giving me a good base for the day, all of
Mm.
those kind of things.
But it's one of them things, in it, where you like they say don't swim on a full stomach, but you have to. You sort of
Well, yeah,
breaking the myth.
it's yeah, it's not. You don't. So on the morning of a swim, say I'm starting. Most of them randomly seem to start at like 1 or 2 in the morning for the tides and things.
Yeah, of course.
So I'll be up a couple of hours before that and have porridge and jam and be supping away at a sort of hydration drink or something.
Mm.
But that having had my tuna pasta or something like that the night before, and then you start on your sort of feed regime when you're actually in the event.
Where does sleep come into this? Because like you said, you're up at 1 a.m. I imagine you're not sort of waking up and going straight down and going straight in. I imagine there's preparation to that. And then if you're swimming for 21 hours, you know, I mean, I don't know. I'm literally asking this question through not having any clue whatsoever. Is there ever times when you just like go in when you're swimming?
Um, yeah, because do you mean from the point of view of not preparing, just
Just
go
no,
in and do?
just like sleeping. Like like you get to that point to like you've probably been up for a day. You've already been swimming for 18 hours.
Yeah,
Like, do you ever just get to that point where you're just like nodding off, or is it just your adrenaline's
I
high,
know,
or
no, I never have from that perspective, but I do think the fact that I go into a bit of a trance at times during the swim is
mm,
probably my body's response to that. Just be uh,
yeah,
so that probably keeps me going with things. But then I have been known to sleep for like 14, 15 hours afterwards.
yeah, I could imagine like the toll on your body afterwards and just
Yeah.
the recovery. How long does it take to recover from one of the swims?
For me, because I'm not super athlete, is I'm usually a month before I'm back on form,
Wow.
months to 6 weeks. Obviously, this time's a lot longer because of my arm.
Yeah.
But before that, you're sort of gradually building up from feeling tired all the time to
Mm,
feeling okay. So
yeah.
then you start thinking, right, I can do some sport again. But actually, I can't do that much because I get fatigued really quickly. And then you gradually build up again.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you probably don't. Well, I didn't even consider is the impact of the aftermath of that. Like you said, you probably can't eat properly for a few days, can you?
No,
Your body's
no.
chafed. I imagine you just want to sort of sit down and not move for days on end and just sort of recover.
So, so in New Zealand, I was stung by blue bottle jellyfish pretty much for the whole swim. And I looked like I had measles, like really raised rashes all
Wow.
over me. Uh, and I we got back to where we were staying, the Airbnb. Everybody went off to their bed and stuff, and I'd had a shower, but I was in so much pain because the toxins were trying to come out my body all at once. So I was sweating profusely, sitting on the end of a bed. It's not very attractive, I say. Stark naked, like sweat pouring out of every orifice. And then I decided the next morning that it was quite bad, and I really ought to go and see a chemist or something. Because
Yeah.
often in the local area, they'll know how to treat them at the chemist. So I
Mm.
went into the chemist. I was chatting to the guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, the swimmer 2 weeks ago ended up in A&E." Oh yeah, yeah, it does look quite bad. Do you think you should go to A&E? And I said, "Well, I'd really rather not if I don't have to." Is there like something I can have? And at that point in time, little village in New Zealand, this old guy wanders in and he calls him over, and I'm thinking, who's he calling to look at my rash? Oh, but it turned out to be the retired village doctor. And he looked
Oh,
at it and said, "Oh, she needs steroids, she needs this, she needs whatever." So they sorted me out. But yeah, for about a week, I couldn't bear to have like clothes close to my skin or anything. And then it gradually started to get better.
my arm just started itching just thinking about it. I just got like a sympathy itch for you. But do you ever sort of do you get to you've been to like New Zealand, Hawaii,
Yeah.
Japan. Do you get to experience these places after absolutely brutalizing yourself for 20 hours and then not wanting to leave your room?
Yeah, to a point, yes, because I try and build in a bit of time around the swim.
Mm.
So sometimes I've been unlucky. So like in Hawaii, although I got to tour about, there was no sort of relaxation about it because my swim window is weather dependent. And they sort of say to you, oh, you're going to go this day. Oh, no, you're not. You're going to go this day. Oh, no, you're not. So you prepare, you get that big high, getting ready to go, and then they'll ring you just before it and go, no, stand down.
Wow.
Weather's changed, or, so then you have to go, right, okay, we'll go out today, we'll go and find something to do. But
Mm.
obviously, I can't drink, I can't overeat massively with the wrong foods. I can't get out of my sleep routine, so there's no partying. So Hawaii in particular was a bit grim for that because I think it was 2 days before I actually came home that the swim was, and they'd stood us up to go about 5 times during that period. Japan, I was very, very lucky in that my swim went in the window, which meant that I had touring round time afterwards, which was
Yeah.
phenomenal. I was all bound up, so I had this like sexy sling on.
Slinged up. Yeah.
Yeah, slinged up,
They're
wandering
not good,
around
them
like that.
slings. I've had my
No,
recent experience with them, but
no,
it must require its own certain mindset, that, because I imagine like the adrenaline of I'm going in 5 hours, I'm going in 6 hours, and then getting a phone call, and then that dump of that.
yeah. So there's a video of me because I now do some sort of chronology for people on Facebook, so they can follow things. I'd gone to bed at 3 in the afternoon because they told me you're going to go, the swim's going to happen in Japan. Got up, had my porridge, got a phone call from the Japanese adjudicator to say, we're standing you down, the waves have picked up to above 2 meters, can't do it today. So you have to put your pajamas back on and like, so there's like all my friends Janet and Jane had filled the back of the car with all the stuff we needed. All that had to come back out again. All their food prep had to come back out again. So there's a video of me standing behind the truck in my PJs saying, "So this is what channel swimming's all about." It's now 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll be going back to bed shortly, but we've been stood down from the swim. Sorry, guys, you'll have to keep tuning in because it's not happening today.
Wow. Again, something that I just wouldn't even comprehend, being an issue. But as soon as you say it, it makes perfect sense. And obviously, talking about the Saguru swim there, I'm trying to not butcher that, because when I was looking into it, and I was like, how am I going to say that? My Wiganese will not be good for saying that word. But I'm glad you said it first, so I didn't have to butcher it. But when
Just say
when is
Japan. It's all right.
Japan? Yeah, when you do Japan,
Japan. Yeah.
when is that? Is there a date on the calendar? Is there a hope? Have you got something circled?
So I will definitely get in again next year, which is really good. But I still have to go through the application process. But because I've completed 6 of the Ocean 7 already, and they've been super kind to me because they actually were taking the mickey a little bit because they said they'd never seen someone swim with one arm for so long. Because I had to adapt my stroke. So instead of my arm going me over the top like it would normally, I was
Yeah.
gliding it under the water and just dropping it
Wow.
down because I actually couldn't raise my left arm to do the stroke. And the pilot of the boat, when I came out of the water, was like shaking his head. And I asked the translator what he was saying. He summarised it. He was from Coventry originally, this guy who did the translation work. He summarised and he said, he thinks you're a beep, beep, beep idiot, in short. because you kept swimming for 10 hours with one arm.
Yeah. I mean, that in itself is insane. And in, like you said,
But
probably one of the roughest currents as well.
yeah, well, the week after they had the tsunami, didn't they? So you probably found all the tectonic plates, which was why the currents were so irrational on that
Wow.
particular day.
And does it sort of fill you with confidence when you approach this again, that you did so much with one arm?
I did.
Yeah.
I got to within 2 miles of land, and I knew there was something wrong when I came in for the feed because they were all quite somber. And Janet and Jane said to me, "Yeah, just give it your best shot for half an hour. Let's see where we are." And I was thinking, what do you mean? I can see it. It's over there. It's 2 hours. That's 2 miles. What are you talking about? But by the time, because the current had gone up to about 10 knots at that point, which I'm not aware of in that way because I'm in the water swimming in it. I know it's a current because I can feel it pushing me, but I don't know how big it is. And I literally swam for 30 minutes and I was more than 5 miles away by the time I came up from my next feed because it had pushed me so far out. And with my arm being as damaged as it was, the pilot they have to call it for safety reasons. He basically said, you aren't going to hit the cutoff because in Japan you have to finish in daylight hours. It's a rule of the Coast Guard basically, which means
Right.
you've got to get the whole swim completed within 14 hours.
Wow. And I suppose that is like the beauty of a good team because it's like a boxer, isn't it? You're in there to do the job. You need someone for
Yeah,
sort of pull you out and be like, listen, I know you don't want to, but you have to. So I mean, again, that sounds
yeah.
like the benefit of having such a good team around you.
Yeah, and Janet had done the first boat with me. She was on the Channel Swim one, and my friend Jane's been with me through all of it, so they know me quite well. And I also know they're not going to mess around with anything, so
Mm,
they know that my rule is unless my arm or leg's dropped off, you don't pull me.
yeah.
Um, and as long as I'm not, at risk of dying immediately,
Yeah, yeah,
just give me a few minutes and I'll gather my head and carry on.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, but they're also incredibly supportive in those down moments as well.
Mm,
Because when I actually did my arm, I shouted out to the boat, I don't think I can do this. I've really hurt myself. And
mm.
Janet, without no nonsense Yorkshire accent, shouts across, crack on to the next feed and we'll see how you are. And I was like,
That's what. Yeah, just need a bit of northern persuasion in your life. That's what it was.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So as we start wrapping the podcast up, there was sort of three. There's two questions that I ask every guest, but there was sort of one that I wanted to ask you in particular is after doing six of these juggernaut swims, which like I said, for me they're arguably like even doing one, it'd be like a legacy. Never mind to try and do all seven. Like there's obviously like a legacy element there. It'll be something that will be in the history books, but stripping all that back, what do you think this has taught you about yourself? Like, is there one thing that you can pinpoint that these challenges have taught you about you?
That there's always a way forward. It might not be what you wanted it to be. And in my case, this was never where I expected to be. I'd been married over 20 years when my husband died, and, we'd already lost our children. So that was a massive change in direction. And I've had to change in direction again. But who would have thought that at the age of, well, I'll be 54 next year, I'll be breaking a British record. I'm hoping to write a book because we've been asked to do so. I'm being asked to do podcasts. I do have to do the speeches. I'm working for a charity. I didn't used to work for a charity, which it's very different to where I expected to be, and I might not have chosen it. But wow, what an
Mm,
option!
yeah,
It's not a bad life. So there's always a way forward,
I
always a
love that.
direction to go in.
It's I'm not just saying it because you sat here with me. It's super inspiring. I hope that even if one person listens to this, they can sort of get something from it, which I'm sure they definitely will. But to
Fingers
just
crossed.
yeah, just the resilience of it all, and the actual magnitude of everything that you've done and will do is just phenomenal. So thank you for joining me today and being so open and transparent and sharing that story with me to share with others. I'm truly appreciative of that. And the last two questions that I always ask
Go on.
is if there was three habits or routines that you could recommend to the everyday person, what would they be and why?
Um, Keep walking every day, even if it's only a little bit.
Mm,
One of the things that got me better and got me going again with things is the fact I've got dogs. So I had to get up and keep walking them every day.
yeah.
And the difference that's probably made to me mental health wise is massive. You don't have to have a dog. Grab a friend, go by yourself, just get out of the house, rain, hail, or shine, and walk, even if it's only for 10 minutes. I suppose another one would be always try and find, and this sounds a bit trite and it's not intended to, and I know there are some days where it's really hard to do. Always try and find the positive in something. So I am very annoying now because yes, I didn't get Japan, but the first thing that came out of me was, yeah, but I'll get another lot of sponsorship for Alder Hay because I've got to do it again.
Yeah.
So people were like, oh, you're really disappointed. Probably in the first 35 seconds, but man, am I proud of what I achieved because I kept going when I know that 90% of other people would have got out. So always look for that positive thing.
Yeah.
And if you've set your mind to do something, no matter how hard it is, don't stop until you've finished. And I use that one in training sessions because sometimes when you're training in the pool, you're bored, you're tired after work, you feel like you've got no energy, you want your tea, you just want to put Netflix on, but don't finish your set early. Carry on, finish it and do it, no matter how bad it is, because it creates that mindset that you don't stop, no matter what the circumstances are.
Amazing. 3 very good ones there, and I always flip it on its head for the last one. So if there was a habit or a routine that you don't do or you have done in the past that you would like to reintroduce, what would that be and why?
Mine has to be because I am the laziest person in the world in the kitchen.
I mean, I would say that. I wouldn't say that, but
I'm really bad. No, I am really in the kitchen. I am
in the
really,
kitchen,
really
right?
lazy in the kitchen. Really, really lazy. So if I could persuade myself to have one better habit, it would be consistent with preparing quality foods to eat, as opposed to just being lazy.
You've just got to get the
names of
carbs in for the
brands, but
training.
yeah,
Just got to get the
yeah,
carbs in for training. You
yeah.
can be forgiven
But
for that.
yeah, I'm not very good sometimes with the types of things that I eat.
I mean, it's
Really not good.
definitely well deserved sometimes after a 6-hour swim or a 3-hour swim. I think anyone can forgive you for indulging after what I could only imagine is ludicrous expenditure.
But it's almost like it's the thing that drops off the cliff. So I keep
Yeah.
myself going for work, keep myself going for dog walking, being with family, doing my swim training, all the rest of it. And then I go in the kitchen, I go,
The baby out with the bathwater.
yeah, I
Yeah.
really don't want to be in here. Hand me the crisps.
Well, I'm not gonna hold you to that. I think again, like the story, even though it's not completed so far, is it's amazing that you've got these opportunities to write books. I hope that your speeches go well and your talks go well because it is truly
Thank you.
an amazing story. It's not often that you meet 1%ers. I think you mentioned there about you talk about like 90% of people wouldn't have done what you'd done, and I think that was a generous number. I think 99% of people probably wouldn't have done what you do or have done, and I don't say this lightly. And yeah, I think you are definitely a true 1%er. I don't think there's many people that could go through what you've gone through and come out of it on the other end with this cast iron, bulletproof, resilient mindset, and also be such a positive person. There was nothing stopping you becoming, a negative person and wanting to crawl away and turn away from challenges and adversity. But yeah, you decided to literally jump in the deep end and swim it for 21 hours. So before we go, I'd love you to tell people where they can donate, where they can support you
Thank you.
for your upcoming swim, and any social media channels that you've got or anything like that. I'll also put them all in the description for you as well.
Okay, so my name's Karen Ennis. If you look me up on the internet, I pop up and you go to my Just Giving page. You can read more about me. I do this all for Alder Hey. I've already mentioned what an amazing cause it is. I bet you or your family have been influenced by the kind of work they do. So even if it's just a quid, stick it in there because it all adds up and makes a difference. I'm not stopping fundraising till I get to 100,000. I've done just over 70,000 now. So I need everybody's help to get me 30,000. Come on, hands in pockets. So just giving Karen Ennis, Google me. And if you want to see me swim next year in Japan, I will be doing it on Facebook and Insta so that people can follow my journey.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and I will definitely pop all that in the description below so people can
Thank
check
you.
it out.
Cheers.
How was that?